Any diet that leaves you feeling dissatisfied, underwhelmed, craving more, just sad, will never, ever work. And you should stop it immediately. Okay? Humans are meant to be able to eat as much of the most delicious foods that our palates desire. It might astound you to realize that every species on the entire planet can eat intuitively, and whatever they are attracted to, they can eat, and it makes them feel amazing, and life is just incredibly good for them. Like, to put this into perspective, imagine if animals had the same sentience that we have, and we could communicate with them. Imagine trying to describe to a grizzly bear, an elephant, a whale, the idea of a diet. Like, this is kind of how I imagine it would go. You would say, oh, sorry, that's whale speak. But translated, you would say, so you see, Mr. Whale, you want to eat all the krill, right, and nourish your body. But what you do is you just don't do that. You stop before you're satisfied and just don't give your body the nourishment that it wants. Brilliant, right? The whale would respond, well, you get it. He would respond, that's ridiculous. Like, why would you not just give your body exactly what it needs and what it wants, right? Like, fundamentally, on an elementary level, the idea of a diet in terms of natural selection is absolutely ludicrous. Now, before I dive into a couple reasons how this is so, and kind of into my solutions, yada, yada, I want to point out that when I'm talking about how diets never work long term, I'm speaking about dieting as a verb, as something that you're doing actively, that is usually restrictive, usually temporary, usually of some variance to what is naturally what your natural behavior would be, right? As opposed to a noun, which is just your diet, what that animal's diet is, which is just what you eat by definition. Because there absolutely is a diet available to humans, which is our natural species appropriate diet, which would allow us to eat as much as we want, whenever we want, of the most delicious foods. Oh, tasty goody foods. But I'm going to dive into that towards the end of this video. So the reason why diets don't work, maybe it's kind of obvious, but I'm going to talk about it anyways, because I think there's a lot of people that still don't get this, okay? The reasoning is twofold. So, number one, to illustrate this first point, I'm going to draw on a little anecdote, okay? Imagine you're broke, okay? I'm sure you're not broke, but imagine you're broke, and on Saturday night, there is a big buffet party dinner, okay? And you're like, oh, wow, food times are tight right now. I could use a good meal. So you want to really get your money's worth. So what would you do in the days prior to this event to make sure you could get your money's worth? And by that, I mean, eat as much food as possible. Pause the video if you want to think about it, but I think the obvious answer is you would maybe eat a little bit less earlier that day, maybe even the day before as well. And maybe as well, you would even exercise a little bit more. Like, the idea would be that you want to show up hungry, right? And to create hunger, to create a metabolic need for food, for nourishment, you would just deprive yourself of that. And therefore, you would go to the party and get your money's worth. So what does that tell us? It tells us that, well, if we look at dieting, any diet that recommends exercising a little bit more and kind of being in a caloric deficit, not meeting your body's hunger needs, that is not a recipe for success. That is a recipe to be hungry and to be miserable and to eventually binge and curb your results. And what even would your results be anyways? Because if the only metric that you're observing is your weight and your waistline, I know most people want to lose weight, then maybe, yes, you are dropping some pounds, but does that even mean that you're healthier? Like, purposely, if you just step back, like, not even looking at humans, looking at another animal and think, an animal consciously depriving itself of nourishment, can that ever be seen as healthy? I don't think so. So point number two is it's very important to consider before you initiate and step into a new diet to think about whether you can do that diet forever, okay? Because if you want a particular diet and get certain results, okay, those results are predicated on your continuation of that specific diet, right? When you cease to eat in that particular fashion because perhaps it was too restrictive and you just couldn't stick it out and return to your old ways, well, then all the results that were only a result of the new way of eating that were predicated on this diet will absolve as well and go back to where you were before. So it's very important, and there might be a few minimal exceptions to this, but for the most part, if a diet isn't going to be sustainable for the rest of your life, then it might help you, I don't know, fit into that dress for the event or whatever, but ultimately it's going to be fleeting, because any diet that you can't keep up forever means the results you're going to get won't last forever, okay? That is why diets don't work. It's kind of obvious, like if you just look at the scheme of nature, no animal diets, the idea of explaining a diet to them, purposefully malnourishing yourself and going hungry, it's ridiculous. So what is my proposition, my solution? Now, it's a carnivore diet. That is, like, humans are hyper carnivores. When you eat what a human is naturally meant to eat, you will naturally find an equilibrium in your body. And I don't mean to sound like a carnivore spokesperson, like they're not paying me to say this. I have discovered the truth, and I think it is a truth worth sharing, okay? When you eat, and any animal eats their natural diet, the body will find a natural equilibrium. You know, if you throw a rock in the puddle, it'll go all crazy, but if you just let it sit, it will calm down, okay? And I see people on this diet that are overweight. They eat as much as they want of the fattiest cuts of meat. They're in a caloric surplus and they lose weight. You know, I see people eating very little that are underweight, gaining weight. Wherever you are and whatever piece of the puzzle is pulled and stretched, when you simply fix the environment of your body, the body is able to respond and fix itself and come back to where it's supposed to be, okay? Every animal on its natural optimal diet is going to thrive. It is going to be healthy. It is going to be at the right body composition. You can't go wrong eating what is right. So that's my recommendation. And I will just wrap up this video by saying, in the context of only take on a diet that you can do forever, I promise you, this is the easiest diet to try and do forever. I mean, you know, maybe one day I might have a little bit of plant matter here or there. Sure, why not? Like, we're hyper carnivores. Bring in some, you know, a few plants if you want to. But I can personally promise you that this is the easiest diet to eat consistently, because all you're doing is eating the most delicious, satiating, nourishing, fatty meats and animal foods, and it feels like every day is your birthday. So there you go. There you have it. Hope this was informative. You're the best. Go out and get in the sun.